Hi, welcome to our second installment of Hawktober 2020. We're here at Live Oak County Park in beautiful Fallbrook. So today I have with me Mutaah, the great horned owl. We're going to talk about raptor adaptations, focusing on the nocturnal raptors, the owls, like the great horned owl here. Great horned owls are the largest owl you'll find in Southern California, and they're one of the most common owls. If you hear a hooting sound in your neighborhood, chances are you have a family of great horned owls that nest somewhere there. Great horned owls nest in tall places, usually trees, but sometimes man-made structures, and they're a bird that likes to nest in that typical stick bowl nest. Fun thing about great horned owls is they don't make their own nest, they just take over an old nest. And generally speaking, everything about a bird is geared to being lightweight, and horns are not lightweight. So even though this is called a great horned owl, these things on top of his head, they're not horns, they're feathers. And those feathers are there for decoration. They probably look good to other great horned owls, and they help them blend in with the leafy tree environment when they're sleeping in the daytime. But they are feathers, they're not horns, and they don't have anything to do with their hearing. Their ears are actually located right beneath the eye at the edge of that round facial disc. Great horned owls can live in a variety of types of habitats in San Diego. The reason they like Live Oak Park or mature oak forest like this is their coloration. If you look at the color of this great horned owl, you'll notice it looks a lot like the color and the texture of an oak tree or a pine tree. So this is a nocturnal animal. They have adaptations that allow them to hunt and successfully find their food and maneuver around in the dark. But in the daytime, they need to sleep. And even though they are hunters, they need to hide from other predators or the daytime raptors that would just not appreciate their presence. Owls have some adaptations that are different from other diurnal or daytime birds of prey that allow them to thrive in that dark environment. First of which is those big eyes. You'll notice his eyes are really large. And in fact, compared to ours, they're really large. If you could imagine having the eye the size of a grapefruit, one on each side of your nose, that's how large an owl's eyes actually are. In fact, their eyes are so large, there's no muscle in the skull to move that eye. So a fun trick you and I can do is I can look left and right and up and down without moving my head. Well, owls, their eyes are so large, they don't have the muscle to allow them to do that. Owls have really good nighttime vision, partially because they're so large. So one of the fascinating things about the pupil in a bird's eye is that they can control it. So unlike you and me, our pupil opens up when it's dim or dark, and when it's really bright out, it closes down. The owl and other birds can actually control their pupil to let in more light, and that allows them to hunt and find their food when their food's hiding in shaded areas, regardless of how bright it is outside. So another fun thing about the eye of an owl, and all birds of prey actually, their eyes are so large, there's actually a bone inside that eye. Owls have a sclerotic bone, and it helps form and shape the eye and give it support because it's so large. Mammals, like us, we don't have any bones in our eyes. And birds of prey, depending on their hunting style, all have different speeds. It's kind of like cars in a parking lot. We go in a parking lot, we can pick out the fast cars, and ones that probably are a little slower. The same thing is true with birds of prey. Owls are amazing nighttime hunters. They have awesome senses to find their food, but they're not as fast as some of the other birds of prey. In fact, being fast would make it harder for them to use their awesome adaptations. So owls are pretty slow when they hunt. This bird might get to go on 10, 15, 20 miles per hour when he's hunting, but if he gets going too fast, those awesome ears that he's endowed with, that great hearing, he wouldn't be able to use it. So they are much slower when they hunt, and that allows them to use those senses of hearing and vision in the dark. So another thing that's unique for owls as far as what they'll eat is skunks. Very few animals will eat a skunk because the skunk has that self-defensive spray. So while owls have great vision and great hearing, they don't have much of a sense of smell or taste. So this is one of very few creatures that will attack and eat a skunk. Now it's usually going to be a small juvenile skunk. This is not large enough of an animal to attack and carry away a skunk. So a lot of people are uneasy having owls in their neighborhood because they're afraid their cat or dog might be in jeopardy. But this bird, as large as he appears, only weighs about 1.5 pounds, maybe 2 pounds. And birds generally can't carry away more than 30% of their body weight. So this bird couldn't fly off with anything heavier than a squirrel at most. So your cat or dog is likely very safe if you have a great horned owl in the neighborhood. So even though a large owl might attack something like a juvenile skunk, you don't have to worry about owls attacking your cat or dog. Cats and dogs are too large and too heavy for a great horned owl to carry away. Also, cats and dogs have other telltale distinct predator type traits, triangular ears. The vision of this owl is very good. They focus in on those sharp teeth, and that's a fight they don't generally want to take on. So don't worry about cats or dogs if you hear a great horned owl in your neighborhood. They're generally not going to attack your pet. They're safe. Owls are also very useful for scientists who are doing analysis of a habitat because they cast a pellet. So a bird of prey, when they eat the entire animal, sometimes all at once if they can swallow it whole, or they use their beak to rip off bite-sized pieces. But those bite-sized pieces, when they swallow, include bones and fur and teeth of everything they eat. So birds of prey, particularly owl species, can't digest all that bone and fur. So what they do is they cough up the bone and fur into one mass that we call a pellet. And that pellet is a clue for scientists. So if a scientist or a biologist wanted to study all the little nocturnal mice or mammals that live in this area, they could either go out and trap them or find an owl pellet, take it apart, and catalog the bones and the teeth that are in that owl pellet. So these guys leave wonderful clues for biologists to do surveys and understand what small mammals and even reptiles live in any given habitat. So both the great horned owl, like this, and the barn owl are really common all throughout San Diego, even if you don't see them. In fact, biologists, when they go out to survey or count how many great horned owls or barn owls are in the area, they don't do it by going, oh, there's one, there's two, and using their eyeballs. They actually count with their ear. So sometimes they'll play a tape recording of the owl they're searching for, and the owls in the wild will call back to it. So knowing what the owls sound like is really important, and all the owls in our area have a different sound, or a different language, if we will. This is the classic hooting owl. If you hear the hooting, woo, 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 you have a great horned owl in your neighborhood. Conversely, the barn owl makes a screeching sound. It sounds entirely different. So if you hear that, you have a barn owl. Usually barn owls and great horned owls won't be found in the same environment. Even though they're both predators with sharp toenails or talons, great horned owls eat barn owls. So you won't oftentimes find the great horned owl and the barn owl living together, because this is dangerous if you're a barn owl. One of the popular misconceptions we have in Western culture is that owls are intelligent, and why owls have remarkable adaptations to survive, and they're very cunning in their own way. I wouldn't consider them one of the more intelligent birds around. Seagulls, ravens, crows, even some of the parrots that we find in San Diego are very intelligent. We could say they're very much problem solvers. However, the owls, their eyes are so large, they use what they have of a brain to process stimulation from the eyes and sounds, that they don't do much complex problem solving. So unlike what you might think from watching Winnie the Pooh, or maybe a story I grew up with, The Secret of Nim, owls are not the wise old owls of the forest. Great horned owls hunt, they will squeeze with 2 toes forward and 2 toes backwards. Eagles, hawks, and falcons will squeeze 3 toes forward, 1 toe back. So when you go 2 by 2, that gives the owl more gripping power. And that's why I can say that this great horned owl is pound per pound the strongest raptor that we have here in the area. So when I was a kid, we had an abandoned house in our neighborhood. And unlike all the other houses on the street that mowed their lawn once a week and took out their trash, this house was neglected, so the weeds grew up tall around it. And those weeds made a great place for mice and rats and other small mammals. Well, we knew it was haunted. Everyone grew up knowing, no, that house is haunted. There's ghosts in there. So being the brave little boys we were when I was about 12 years old, we decided we were going to go investigate one night. So we found on the side of the house, through the tall weeds, was a broken out window that we were able to crawl in. When we crawled into that window after dark, as soon as we got in the house, we heard a screaming sound. We looked at each other and thought, no way, what is that? So we walked closer to that screaming sound. It was actually up towards the banister of the second story. So as we got closer, the scream call came again. And then the third time, as we got closer, a spirit we thought, or a ghost, flew right at us, over our head and out the window. And we were sure we saw a ghost. And as we got closer to where that ghost took off from, we started smelling something really bad. Something smelled dead. So we thought for sure we found a genuine ghost encounter. We got out of there pretty quick, but we came back the next time in the daytime. So we crawled through that window at daylight, and at the top of that banister in the second story, what did we find? Not a ghost, but a sleeping barn owl. And what was that smell? Well, that smell was the pellets. The pellets that barn owls cast up, they're bones from mice and fur, and they don't smell very good. So we smelled that awful smell, we heard that scary sound, and then a white thing floated through the air and above our heads. What we thought was a ghost or a spirit was actually a barn owl taking advantage of a place to nest and shelter inside an abandoned house. So it's because of barn owls we have the conception of ghosts being white, 3 feet tall, and float through the air. Thank you so much for joining us on our second installment of Hawktober. Catch us next week right here on YouTube. Visit us at sdparks.org to find out about more recreation opportunities and wildlife in San Diego County.